how software interacts with its environment, with its operating system environment, and how efficiently software can work within its operating system. Now, there's a lot of kind of theoretical knowledge and schools of thought out there on functional testing and input testing and things like that, because it's rooted very much in the theoretical. You've got sort of ideas such as boundary value analysis, equivalence partitioning, things like that, pairwise, and lots of learning and research on that. But the problem with monitoring is it's rooted very much more in the practical. There's not a sort of school of thought on it or any central body of knowledge, because the way that you monitor and what might be practical to monitor is completely different depending on your sort of context and your environment that you're working in. So how as testers do we go about kind of learning the relevant skills to do this? And this is a question that someone actually posted on a discussion group the other day, and what I'm going to sort of present here is a set of bullet points that I thought of would be good sources of learning for us as testers, and places that we can find out information and improve our skills on how to monitor these things. Now, I think a really good place to start with looking at this stuff is let's talk to the people who care if we get it wrong. Who's going to really get upset if we mess this up and our software is really inefficient? And the sort of prime candidate there is the system administrators. These are the guys who are going to be responsible for making sure that the system's running smoothly, the sort of the monitoring the network activity and making sure our system fits in with their infrastructure as a whole. So they have a vested interest in software working effectively, and particularly in the case if the software we're testing is for implementation in the organisation that we're working. So it's a mutually beneficial activity if you as testers spend some time working with your sysadmin and say what's important to you, what do we need to measure, and how do you go about measuring it. And I personally have certainly benefited from sitting down when I was working at the police force implementing projects there with the system administrators, and them teaching me the tools they use to monitor the network activity and monitor other critical elements of the operating software. And the fact that you're learning this stuff from them means that you're going to be spending less time bothering them in the future when you need to measure it again. So it's, as I say, it's a mutually kind of beneficial situation if you can find a sort of a friendly sysadmin who you're going to learn from that. DBAs as well, very much on the same kind of principle that your software should work well with the databases that it's interacting with. It should use database resources effectively. Now, your DBA is the person who's going to get upset if it doesn't do that. So sitting down and spending some time with DBAs and learning about things like how to gather explain plans of when the system's running, and actually looking at those explain plans and trying to pick out sort of areas that might be inefficient. Again, it's going to be a mutually beneficial activity and one that's going to help you and them in the long term. So, as well as the guys that are going to get upset if you get it wrong, there's other people that sort of maybe your colleagues that you can learn from. And the first of those are the programmers. Now, I know that someone's mentioned to me this evening that sometimes the tester to programmer relationship can be a bit frosty, but if you do have friendly sort of programmer relationships, then these guys are fantastic sources of knowledge. I mean, most of them don't just program as their day jobs. They're I hate to say it, but sometimes a little bit geeky, and go home, try things, write their own tools, write their own things, take computers together, put them back together again. There's often a lot of stuff that you can learn and pick up. I've certainly got tools that I use in my day-to-day testing activities that have been written by the developers I work with to get information out of our system on how much memory it's going to use when it loads this file and things like that. So as well, if you're speaking to the developers and finding out this stuff, then it's going to benefit you, because you're going to get more respect and be listened to more when you are raising up issues, because they know you know what you're talking about. Okay, as well as the devs, obviously you've got your tester colleagues. There's no point in working with other experienced testers if you're not tapping them for information and you're not sharing your skills across. And in my team, I try and kind of encourage a culture of shared learning, so that if one tester sort of spends some time going off and learning a new tool, a new technique, they'll come back to the team, they'll do a lunch and learn on it, they'll write up how to do it on the wiki and try and make sure that new knowledge is integrated into the team. So that's a really good sort of effective way of sharing your learning, and also that applies to the software you're testing as well. If you learn sort of tricks, internal boundaries, little idiosyncrasies of the software that can catch you up, put them on a wiki page, a sort of test cheat sheet for your own software, and you'll be sharing with other testers how to find the sort of pitfalls and traps when someone else comes to test those areas in the future. So if you don't have access to these things, there are other options such as maybe tester forums. There's a lot of forums and user groups. There's the Software Testing Club that's got some good discussion groups. There's some great Yahoo groups out there as well. LinkedIn, if you like that kind of thing. You know, there's discussion groups out there, but there's sort of a word of warning with that one, that people's time is valuable. If you're going to get people who sort of expertise and they're going to be spending time helping you, you need to make sure your question's rooted in a real problem, that you've put some effort in yourself. Just going on there and saying, how do I test sort of how my application uses memory is not going to get you very far. People aren't going to give you any time because you haven't obviously spent the time yourself. So you need to do some research, and that is obviously where the web comes in. You're looking up on the web, there's a lot of open source tools out there for monitoring. You know, there's, if you search on the web for sort of monitoring how your system uses I/O and sort of I/O benchmarks, things like that, there's stuff out there. There's other monitoring tools, there's tools for monitoring network access, Fiddler and things like that. Obviously, some people are in environments where you can't just go and load open source tools. I was in a large financial organisation a couple of weeks ago with a customer, and they couldn't even download Putty and use it. It was completely locked down. But there are sometimes tools already in the operating systems that you've got available to you on your server systems that maybe you could learn a bit more about to help there. The last one that I thought of, as I say, this isn't an exhaustive list, but maybe kind of lower down on the scale, are training courses. Obviously, you know, your DBAs, your sysadmins, they learn somewhere, and there's sort of training courses to get up to speed on things like that. Maybe it might be appropriate for you to actually take courses yourself in things like that. And I've certainly lobbied managers in the past to get training in, say, basics of database administration to get me up to speed, to help me test the database interactions in my system more effectively. So that's maybe more a costly option, but if you haven't got access to expertise elsewhere, then it might be something that's available to you. As I say, those are some ideas that I thought of. It's not an exhaustive list, so it's kind of the reason I wanted to talk about it tonight was maybe to kind of generate some ideas from the room as well about other ways other people learn and ideas from them. I'm sort of trying to put together an article for the Testing Planet on this, so any other ideas that people have that they're happy for me to steal, I'll hopefully include in the article and hopefully get it submitted for a future version. So, thank you very much.
Did you want to take any questions?
Anyone have any questions, comments, ideas? Just getting blanks.
What tools have you found useful yourself?
Personally, in my current context, many of the tools that we use are, because we're based in kind of Linux and Unix kind of environment, there's a lot of great tools that you've got there already, or sort of installed packages to use. So, you know, it's just a case of sort of learning and finding out about them. There's also some I/O, as I say, there's some I/O benchmarks that we've used to sort of measure disk performance, things like that, TIO bench and stuff like that. Don't tend to get involved in kind of Fiddler and Wireshark and stuff like that so much, because we're not so sort of rooted in the web sort of end of things, but I know a lot of people do find those tools very useful. I have had occasion to use them, and I think they're excellent, but not specifically for our context. But in the past, I've worked in sort of Windows houses and where you use tool sets much more limited because there's more locked down, but you've still got perfmon and sort of command line monitoring options to run sort of graphs of all your different sort of profiles and characteristics that you can gather some really good information.
You've got all the system internal tools as well.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Very good.
Yes, yeah. So it's, it's just a case of often of knowing that they're there and finding out, and that's where working with the sysadmins can help, because they sort of know all this stuff. When I was at the police, the sysadmins were showing me a lot of tools and things already in the Windows operating system that I didn't really know about that could really help with sort of monitoring and finding out problems. And certainly when we had some sort of network issues, and it helped me to pin down exactly which component in the system was throwing the network problems, and so yeah, and it meant that they didn't have to do it, which was great, because otherwise it would have been a lot of time on their part trying to work this stuff out.
I've got a question about sort of expected results. How do you know that things working as it should in that sort of environment? Because I guess you haven't got a spec that says X, Y, Z, or do those sorts of things exist?
Yeah, I don't know on that one. I would say that it's a case of you sort of monitoring what the system does and kind of trying to learn about what you would expect to see.
Yeah, so it's expectation that you have some knowledge and some expertise in that area.
I've certainly not encountered a situation where we've had a requirement that says we must use this amount of resources or whatever, and except in our case in the sort of on-disk and memory area. So sometimes you have our technology is rooted very much in the benefit we offer is compression of data. So obviously, file size is going to be important, but other things it's not so much. Like our network usage, we don't have anything to sort of say this is how much it has to be, but and file layer as well. But monitoring it, and sometimes you can sort of pick out problems and performance issues. On the database side of things, when I was working at the police force, just doing some explain plans of single transactions, clear single transactions, and you can see kind of down the stack how many full table scans it's doing, or where, you know, at one point I was looking at a system and it was every transaction it would do 2 select staff from audit table. You just think, well, okay, there's problems here. So sometimes it's not so much having an expectation as being able to identify where there might be a problem, and you know, just spotting for memory leaks, things like that, just graphing over time, seeing that things increase.
He meant to say he analyzes consistency relationships.
Yes, that's what I meant to say.
That's all what you're talking about is all different examples of consistency relationships of various kinds. Testers, like detectives, like customs officers, like lots of people who are investigative type people, are constantly scanning, looking for things that don't match other things, and then they ask questions about those, and that fuels inquiry. And you're doing that too. It happens a lot in very complex circumstances. And we can categorize some of these consistency relationships, and we try to do that in the rapid testing methodology. But even if you don't do that, I think that's the key word you were looking for. If I don't have a specific expectation, I can still look for inconsistencies of all kinds as I build a mental model of what is going on.
Yeah, you see relative behaviour and consistency.
Those are the things that stand out from the background, I guess.
Right, exactly. Contrasts, discontinuities, all that sort of thing draws the attention. In fact, our brains are wired to notice discontinuities from millions of years ago.
So the other thing was about sort of bugs and things. You ever go back and look at bugs that were raised in previous releases and things and see whether there's any learning in that, if the developer or set of developers have made a mistake or a non-optimal solution in the past, then they might be doing the same sort of things again? Or?
I don't specifically do that, although as I say, what we do try and do is if there's an area that we fall foul of or that trips us up, we will try and put something related to that into a sort of a set of heuristics or sort of a sort of cheat sheet, say, you know, look for this has tripped us up before, make sure you monitor for this.
That's the same thing.
It's essentially the same thing. It's not, we don't go back and look at the old bugs and dig them out, but we will try and add to a body of knowledge that says we've had issues in this area, and try and make sure that you look at that again. If you hit that area, make sure that you test for that specific problem arising again.